Hey everybody, it's Anna. Welcome back to my booktube channel. I'm here today for another sort of bags and babbles, I guess, which is what I'm going to call my series, where I'm bringing a cup of tea and a chat to you. I know that Simon at Savage Reads has his cuppa and a catch-up. Leslie at Words of a Reader does conversations over coffee. I do bags and babbles, so grab yourself a beverage, warm or cold, and settle in as we are going to just discuss a few books that I've read recently that I've really been enjoying. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with a series that I have been rereading lately, and that is the Protector of the Small series by Tamara Pierce. This was actually the series that introduced me to Tamara Pierce when I was maybe 11 or 12. I think I was close to the same age as Kel, who's the protagonist of this series. This kind of picks up where her previous two series, the Alana the Knight series and the series about Dane, the Wild Mage, I believe that's called Wild Magic, pick off. And they are the story of this girl, Keladri of Mindolin, who decides that after 10 years since Alana was successful in becoming the first Lady Knight and was a King's Guard and everything like that, she's going to be the first girl page who decides to join the order, after it's already been made legal and allowed and things like that for girls to become knights. So she is openly a girl. She's not disguising herself as a boy the way that Alana had to, and just going through her own peculiar set of challenges as someone that wants to stand up to bullies and be a protector of the small and the downtrodden and things like that. And I am just saying, these books hold up so well. I really loved them as a kid. I'm enjoying them even more now, possibly, just because it's now been, 10 years or so since I last read these books, and I've seen, as I've gone and reread them, I've noticed parts of these books where I remember thinking at times in my own life, wow, I made this decision because I made the decision that I thought Kel would make. I did what I thought Kel would do. So I very much enjoyed being able to revisit these old favorites. Another book that I'm currently reading is Wintertide by Ruthanna Emrys. This is published by Tor, and it is basically a retelling in the tradition of stories like Wicked, of the Cthulhu mythos and the H.P. Lovecraft kind of canon and universe and things like that. And this story follows a woman named Afra, who is one of these, they're called water people, so they're humans, but they're a little bit different variety of humans. What we would consider as humans are called air people, but they're water people. They have their own sort of culture and traditions and gods that they worship, and they were all but exterminated by the US government during a purge that happened prior to World War II. So she and her brother were some of the only people to survive these camps, and then one of the camps that they were staying in was actually converted to a Japanese internment camp where the US government imprisoned unlawfully Japanese and Japanese American residents of the United States during World War II. So she finds this kinship with the Japanese American family that kind of take her in because she's been in the camp for this whole long time. So this takes place several years after the war has ended, and Afra is working alongside a Jewish CIA, I believe, agent who is also similarly outcast because of his ethnicity, and they're basically trying to make sure that the Russians aren't able to get hold of the sort of magic and magical technology that the water people possess, because if it falls into the wrong hands, they're worried about the Cold War arms race and all of that. So I'm about halfway through this book right now. I am really enjoying it. It's a little bit of a slower read, more comparable to, I think, an original Lovecraft story than the more fast-paced, battle-y, flashy, fancy science fiction and fantasy that I read a lot of. But I am very much enjoying this. I'm enjoying its sort of nuanced take on questions of race and religion and free will and this particular type of persecution that is present in the original Lovecraft works, but more so a reflection of Lovecraft's own biases, his own xenophobia and anti-Semitism, whereas in this book, that discussion really kind of tries to probe those themes present in Lovecraft's original works. Wow, I am like not having the easiest time talking about this. It really tries to like probe those themes and address those themes in a way that Lovecraft's original works do not. So I will be letting you know how I think of this book as I finish it, probably sometime next week. Okay, and then the next book that I'm currently reading is a standalone graphic novel, and that is Spell on Wheels by Kate Leff, Megan Levins, and Marissa Louise. This is the story of 3 queer ladies who are also witches who are going on a magical road trip to get back some witchy and magic items that were stolen from them. I'm about just under halfway through this, and I love it so far. It is so sweet. The themes of friendship between women and love between women are very strong. I think that the artwork is a lot of fun. It is greatly colored. And I also got to meet Kate Leff at Comic-Con, and now like having a face to put with the author's name, there's just something that like improves the work. Even though this is great already, there's just something about getting to meet the author where you're just like, I really see where you were coming from when you decided to write this. So those are all of the books that I'm currently reading. Now for some recent reads. I will try to keep the wrap-ups pretty short and, just a couple of sentences because I don't want this video to go on for too long. Go ahead and start with the books as opposed to the graphic novels. First thing that I read recently that I enjoyed was The Book of the City of Ladies by Christine de Pizan, and I will link my review for that up there if you'd like to learn more about this, but this is a medieval French work of philosophy and proto-feminism. I also, for the Reading Women Challenge of 2018, recently completed The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. This fulfilled my fairy tale adaptation challenge for the Reading Challenge. This is a highly gothicized and eroticized collection of fairy tale retellings. As with most story collections, I found that some of the stories were stronger than others, but this was still a solid read, and I would recommend it if you're a fan of very sort of dark, spooky, body horror, and fairy tale retellings. I also finished Roots, which is a graphic novel by Tara O'Connor about her story when she decides to take a trip back to Ireland to find out some more information about her family, but ends up finding herself instead. I thought that this book was pretty good. It wasn't like anything that wowed me or blew me out of the water, but I'm glad that I read it. I picked this up because of Kathy Tryhart's recommendation, and I will link her channel as well so that you can go check out her work if you'd like to see that. So thank you, Kathy. I also completed this anthology, Chainmail Bikini, the anthology of women gamers. I picked this up around Christmas time, 2017, and this, again, like most anthologies, sort of suffers from an inconsistency in quality, but I did enjoy this very much. It's like a comics examination of different women and their relationships to games, whether those are video games, board games, tabletop RPGs, etc. This had fantastic queer and trans contributors that also have work featured in here. And I think a particular favorite of mine was the story about the Pikachu that decided he didn't want to fight anymore in Pokemon, and at night when he would go to sleep, he would dream and wake up in like the world of Animal Crossing where he could just have people be his friends and he didn't have to fight, and it was so sweet. So this was a solid book. Next we have Lumberjanes Volume 8, which is entitled Stone Cold. This Lumberjanes installment sees the return of Diana to the Zodiac cabin, and when she returns, she's really upset at the Roanoakes, which are the main Lumberjane girls that we follow throughout this story, because her cabin mates have all been turned into stone. So they have to work together with someone who's previously been their nemesis to figure out what's been going on and get the rest of their fellow Lumberjanes unstonified. Yeah. This one was really funny. I think that this was the first Lumberjanes that I actually gave 5 out of 5 stars to when I rated it, because the series has really just grown into something that's so much more than it was when I first started reading it back when it was, oh man, when did this first start coming out? 2014? A while ago. But it's grown into something incredible and amazing. Fantastic. And finally, I would like to talk about what may end up becoming my favorite book of the month of March, and that is The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. I actually finished this right at the beginning of the month because it was right before I went to Comic-Con, and I remember this because I was like, oh, the author's gonna be there, maybe I can get her to sign the book. I wasn't able to do that, but I also was thinking that before I had finished it, and when I did finish this book, I was just floored. It was so sweet. I was just sitting on my couch, like crying happy little tears because of how pure this book is and how wonderful an examination of love and friendship it is, and the importance of being true to yourself. That is a theme that, it sounds all cheesy, and like every Disney movie has that, like, oh, just be yourself and everything will be okay theme. But this book managed to make that authentic presentation of self seem genuine and sincere, and it wasn't cheesy and it wasn't silly, and the characters had to deal with real life problems. It wasn't just like, oh, there's something that is a problem because we have to throw one in there. Like, the way that it was plotted made the characters' internal and external conflict read so real and authentically, and you were just really, really rooting for Francis and Sebastian to be able to live out their dreams. I guess I kind of provided a synopsis of this when I hauled it, but this book is about Francis, who is the dressmaker, and Sebastian, who is the prince, and Sebastian hires Francis to make dresses for him because at night he likes to wear dresses and go out into the city of Paris, and he, I guess, sort of performs. It's not on a stage, but he becomes like a semi-famous nightlife person in the persona of Lady Crystalia, who is almost like, I guess, a drag queen version of himself. It isn't like drag the way that, you know, we think of it currently, but it definitely has some strong elements of that. And then Frances, you know, is feeling somewhat disheartened because she really wants to help her friend, and she thinks maybe she's falling for him, but she still has to be a secret because Sebastian is worried that if his parents found out, they would be really upset with him and they would disown him, and that if the women princesses that he's supposed to be marrying, one of them soon finds out, that they won't want to marry him because he, you know, is worried that they won't be able to accept that he is a prince that likes to wear dresses. So the story of how the characters' friendship really sees them through these conflicts, just, I'm gonna cry now talking about it. It was absolutely stunning. This should be on everybody's library bookshelf. I know that when I have local book drives and things going on, I try to make a point of donating a book with a theme of like inclusivity and acceptance, especially if it's like a queer story. So this is definitely going to be one of my go-to donated books. And I would like to thank my friend Dahlia for sending this to me for my birthday. You are the best. All right, so that's going to be about it, I think, for this Bags and Babbles. I hope that you all enjoyed this style of video. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do wrap-ups, whether I want them to be frequent, infrequent, monthly, weekly, etc., or if I just want to start making them when I feel like it, which is kind of what prompted me to make this video right now. It's like, hey, it's a beautiful day, not too noisy outside, just feel like filming a video. So let me know what you think of that down in the comments, and if you want to talk about any of the books that I mentioned or make any recommendations, of course, please feel free to leave that as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!